Good evening and thank you for being part of our show. Let's start with your thesis that this thing with Bulgaria now is actually a NATO problem. Can you explain more about that? What do you mean by that?
It's very simple. You have one NATO ally, Bulgaria, exploiting its position as an EU member to effectively perform identity aggression, a form of aggression against another NATO ally. We cannot have that in the NATO alliance. We cannot have Turkey having aggression against Greece in NATO. This type of aggression is similar in form to what Russia does to Ukraine. Russia says to Ukraine, you are artificial country, you are artificial nation, you are really Russian. Bulgaria says similar things here in North Macedonia. You are artificial nation, you are really Bulgarian, your language is really Bulgarian, your history prior to 1944 is all Bulgarian. That's very similar to what Putin is doing in Ukraine, and we say that's completely unacceptable. Putin does it with bombs. Bulgaria does it with a blockade in the European Union. And these are two NATO allies. So it is a problem for the NATO alliance to have this kind of pressure, of a form of aggression by one NATO member to another.
Do you think that this understanding is present in the NATO? What can NATO do, actually?
Well, you know, the main proponent within NATO is the United States. So what I propose in this article, which came out this week in Foreign Policy, and which that magazine is widely distributed and widely read in the United States, including within the Biden administration and the State Department.
And it was wonderfully received here, I have to say, your messages.
Thank you. And the point was that there is an American role. That was the point of the article. The point of the article was there are very serious U.S. interests at stake. That's the first part. Not just here in North Macedonia, but in Bulgaria itself. This is what's additionally. Everyone here in North Macedonia understands the problem from your perspective, that you're blocked and that this is a severe problem for this country and even attaches to Albania, and which creates also other complicated problems here. Everyone in this country, North Macedonia, understands that. It's also a problem in Bulgaria, and that's a problem for the United States. Why? Because it's precisely President Rumen Radev of Bulgaria and others in the who are Bulgarian officials in the Bulgarian parliament who exploit this issue for an agenda that is aligned with Putin. So the ones who are exploiting this issue in Bulgaria are the ones who are aligned with Vladimir Putin. That's a problem for us. That's not just a problem for you, Macedonians, citizens of North Macedonia. It's a problem for the United States that Radev and those who are aligned with Moscow, with Russia, that's a problem, that they're the ones who exploit this issue against Prime Minister Petkov and others who would like to resolve it.
Yes, we go back to this bilateral issue with Bulgaria. How do you estimate now the situation in Bulgaria, having in mind the government of Petkov and its destiny? These things that you are mentioning now, and Radev and all his ideology, will become even more stronger.
That's exactly right. The situation is very serious for the United States and its NATO allies and its European Union partners. This is a very serious problem for us. This is what I want to emphasize. It's not just a problem for you in North Macedonia. This is a problem for us. This is a problem for President Biden and all European Union that are aligned against Vladimir Putin. You have Putin associates who are now empowered, Radev and his associates who are pro-Kremlin, Borisov, Pantev, these type of pro-Putin strains in Bulgaria are empowered because of this issue. using this North Macedonia issue. This was the main issue to bring down Petkov. Again, this is a problem for us. And so it's up to what I propose is the United States can remove the strength of this issue from Radev and others by United States action bilaterally with North Macedonia. The US can lower the ability, reduce the ability of Radev to exploit this issue.
Supporting strongly the identity.
That's exactly right.
Macedonian identity.
Yes, so let's make it clear for your viewers. What I propose is that the United States, which is a sovereign country, affirm the Macedonian identity, which is another sovereign country, in the context of the strategic dialogue. So it's very simple. I want to make it very clear for your viewers. Bulgaria denies the Macedonian identity. That's the essence of what the position is in Bulgaria. They deny.
They constantly repeat they do not.
But they do.
But they do.
This is the essence of it. This is the essence of the Bulgarian position, is to deny. They can say what they want, but this is the consistent effort and the attempt, is to deny the Macedonian identity, and they can do that immediately, they can do that over time, is to deny that, and to create incentives for Macedonians here to accept Bulgarian citizenship. They can also deny. The fundamental position hasn't changed. Position on history has not changed. So they say in Bulgaria, they deny the Macedonian identity. What I propose is the United States affirms the Macedonian identity. So it's very clear for your viewers. Bulgaria denies the Macedonian identity. The United States will affirm the Macedonian identity. So this agreement between the United States and North Macedonia, bilateral cultural agreement under the strategic dialogue, it will affirm it. And we can do that very simply by using language from the Prespa agreement, which is a good agreement, because in that agreement, it was a true compromise. Greece recognized the Macedonian identity.
Clearly.
So we, United States, can also recognize the Macedonian identity using the same, very similar language to that. And everyone here, the United States, strongly supports and respects the Prespa agreement. And that will be a strong signal. While Bulgaria denies the Macedonian identity, the United States will affirm it. And Bulgaria, they can say, well, we don't care. But they will care. Bulgaria will care, because it will mean the United States is formally affirming Macedonian identity. That's something that they cannot afford.
And ignore.
Or ignore in Bulgaria. And it's not something that you can just say. It means that the United States is engaged in this, and the United States should be engaged in this. We have every reason to be, because it's not just a European Union issue. It involves two NATO allies.
I have to be honest, if this proposal of yours finds support here, that would mean that we have to change the strategy of the political strategy of the negotiations with Bulgaria. Why I'm saying this? Because you were very clear that Bulgaria denies Macedonian identity, but here the official narrative is that we are ignoring that denial. Do you think that this narrative helps ignoring the real position of Bulgaria? Maybe we are wishful thinking, in the process, but should we be more clear about what the real demands of Bulgaria are? Because pretending that they are not denying, it's not helping in the process.
North Macedonia is a sovereign country. So you're a democracy, you have elected officials, they are accountable to the public, you have a parliament that functions, you have a government that functions, you have a president who has a strong record of being strongly pro-Western, strongly pro-NATO, strongly pro-EU. It's not for me to tell the Macedonian government what its position should be on its national issues. It's not for me to say. I'm not Macedonian, so I cannot say you should be stronger or you should be less strong on this proposal. I can only say how I read it, and I can say what I believe Bulgaria is doing, undermining the Macedonian identity. But I leave to Prime Minister Kovacevski and President Penderovski, I leave it to them to decide what position they want to take and what they want to say and explain to the citizens of this country, not just Macedonian, but Albanian and all others.
The whole country, whole society. How do you see the efforts of European Union? Because the last role of France here was estimated that it was more harmful than helpful. Okay,
here I can give my opinion. You have some good efforts of EU mediation, for example, by Portugal.
Germany.
And in Germany, but Portugal in particular, because yes. Portugal had, when it had the presidency, it had a concrete approach for resolving these issues that was fair to Bulgaria and fair to North Macedonia, that didn't create a dangerous precedent for the EU itself, not just a bad precedent for North Macedonia, because which the French proposal is very problematic. So you have good EU mediation and you have not so good EU mediation. So the French mediation is not so good. The Portuguese mediation was very good. That's good. That's what
good diplomacy.
That's good diplomacy. That's being fair to Bulgarian position. It's being dignified to a Bulgarian position if they want to accept that. But they reject that. They rejected that. The French came in and gave a proposal that, in my view, reflects EU weakness. This is EU weakness. Portugal gave one that was very fair.
Balanced.
Yes, this is one that was fair, that didn't create dangerous precedent. The French proposal has two dangerous precedents. One is for North Macedonia, because it brings in claims on history into the negotiating framework, which is very bad. And this is the key question, and people who defend the French proposal would have to explain it. Even in Sofia, as I wrote in the article, a member of Petkov's party even said, defending this, that
for them the language is...
No, that they can block at any point. The French proposal allows them to block.
Also, there was an MP from Petkov's party who said that the language is artificial.
That can be as well, but I didn't have that in the article. What the Gechev said is that...
Is the same guy, actually.
Is that even under the French proposal, we can still block. So in a way to sort of persuade people to support this. And that's a very bad approach. The other thing that's very bad is to create a precedent in the EU. This is not just bad for North Macedonia, it's bad for the EU. That you create a precedent where countries are allowed to bring in these bilateral issues on history and related questions into the negotiating process, formalized within, and where the Commission has to, the European Commission is going to somehow be a referee and a judge on this, on textbooks and things like these issues. So that's a very bad precedent. It's not just bad for North Macedonia. What about all of these other aspirants in this neighborhood in Balkans? And what about in Ukraine, where we know, as I wrote, Hungary has claims on Ukraine, that its own historical claims. So the French proposal is bad for France, and it's bad for the European Union.
People who were defending the proposal here, they said that even now Bulgaria can block anytime. So what's the difference? Blocking like this or blocking within the negotiating framework?
I'll tell you the difference. The difference is right now, it's a very important question, and I'll be very precise with the answer. Right now, when Bulgaria blocks, they're isolated. They are isolated. within the European Union. So they can continue to block, they're isolated. And they're doubly isolated because they're blocking Albania as well. And everyone knows this is unfair. Unfair that Albania is blocked. So they're twice isolated. Then, if the United States were to do as I said and affirm the Macedonian identity, they would be isolated also in NATO in that sense, because it's the United States. In a wider sense, the United States is the lead member of NATO. It's not this is not an official NATO document, but they would be isolated in NATO in that sense as well, because through the United States. So they would be 3 times isolated in present. With the French proposal, they're no longer isolated. They're no longer isolated. Albania is free to go forward, and North Macedonia is the one that is left isolated, and by their own admission in Bulgaria, they can continue to block and continue to block. So this is the choice. Bulgaria, it's true, can continue to block. Which would you rather have? Bulgaria block you while they are isolated, or block you when they are free and isolated and told, oh, look, that they have resolved this issue and accepted a proposal? Which is better, to have them blocked and be isolated, or no longer be isolated? I think the answer is clear. But the problem is you have interests in Europe that continue not to really take this region seriously and take this subject seriously, and that's a problem. This is very important. That's a problem not just for the European Union and not just for the Balkans. That's a problem for the United States, because that helps Vladimir Putin. Keeping this region uncertain, helping allies like Radev and Alexander Vučić, and I want to emphasize for your viewers, Alexander Vučić is not a friend to Macedonians. Alexander Vučić is a friend to Vladimir Putin, and is a friend to himself, and not to the integration of this region. My point is that it's not just North Macedonia that suffers here. It's not just Balkans or Europe. It's also the United States, because this lack of seriousness on the part of France and others within the European Union is damaging to U.S. interests. And I just add one more. It was France, President Macron, who opened the door for Bulgaria in the first place by blocking North Macedonia in 2019.
Changing the methodology.
Exactly. After Prespa agreement, and he was criticized and told, Juncker and others said, this is a historic mistake, and it has been a historic mistake, and that's why...
From this perspective...
That's why we're here
we
today.
Can see that.
And that's why there's this problematic French proposal, is because of that very short-sighted decision. And I don't know what President Macron is thinking. For some domestic political reasons, he did this. Well, he just had very bad results in parliamentary elections. So I don't know why he thinks that keeping North Macedonia out of the EU process, even negotiations, somehow helps him domestically. It seems to me voters in France don't care about this issue, and this is a mistaken vision in Paris.
My last question will be about your prognosis, if it's possible. Yes. to have them, about what are possible ways of development of the issue now.
Okay, look, I don't predict the future, so I'm not doing that. I'm not going to give you a crystal ball. But what I will say is, look, these things sound so complicated, they're not. They're not. These things are not complicated. This is what the viewers must understand. This stuff is not that complicated. This is power, okay? Russia is here, Ukraine is here. Russia is big, has oil and gas, and has all sorts of weapons, and has no ethics, morals, completely corrupt country. And it bombs Ukraine. And anyone here who doesn't think that that's right doesn't know the facts. There's no reason for any citizen of this country to be wearing any t-shirt with Vladimir Putin or waving any Russian flag. You wave Russian flag, you're waving flag of aggression against your own country and against similar countries.
And the same narrative that our political enemy in the moment is
That's
using.
right. So if you are here in North Macedonia and you wear a Russian t-shirt, you are supporting aggression like this from a stronger country to weaker country, and you're supporting Bulgarian aggression like this. Bulgaria, more powerful member of EU, you are not, bigger country than North Macedonia. So you are supporting aggression through EU identity aggression, aggression on history. You are supporting that if you support Vladimir Putin. And so it's not complicated. What we need to do is, instead of Bulgaria being like this with North Macedonia, we need to make Bulgaria more like this. And that's the United States. So once the United States affirms the Macedonian identity, then things start to become more balanced. And when things are more balanced, people like Kirill Petkov have an advantage. He's reasonable, and he can speak with your side.
Thank you very much for your messages and for your time.
Thank you very much.